Travis.
Uh,
It's Travis. How you doing, buddy?
I just can't get over the hair. When I saw you last in June, you were like the hippie, and now you're
man. Yeah.
And you're looking all clean cut and all that stuff. You're looking good.
I don't want anybody to be able to predict what's going on. You know, I just need to change my look up.
No one can stop you. You're a rebel.
That's it. That's it. So
rumor has it that you drank milk a few days after it was past due. You're a rebel, dude.
Oh, I've been doing that for years. Absolutely.
No one can stop you.
Just to test it. That's right.
We follow you. You'll take us down with you.
One way or another. That's the fact. Yep. So welcome everybody to Notes On. This is Travis and Ross, and we talk about whatever grabs us about our Christian faith, and we try to do Christ on purpose. And Travis, I just wanted to remind you and all our listeners of what's coming up on April 8th, 2024. It's a big deal. It's the total solar eclipse that only happens once in a lifetime, really. Actually, not so true. There was one in 2017, and I went and saw it in Oregon. This one, I'm going with our friends at Reasons to Believe to Texas. And I think there's another one. What I learned is they come in triplets, 7 years apart. So 2017, 2024, there'll be another full solar eclipse in 2031, I think it is. And then it's going to be a long, long time before there's one here. But
where in Texas is RTB going?
It's right around, it's a little town called Burnett, and it's right around Austin. So looks like the prairie from the pictures. Never been to that part of Texas, so I'm really looking forward to it. And I just want to encourage people, if you've never seen a total solar eclipse, first of all, it is more dissimilar to any natural thing you have ever seen than anything else. It is weird. You can see why the ancients thought it was the end of the world, or the demons were coming, or something. It's for that 3 minutes you are in a different place, and to say, where I'm going to be, it's going to be 80%. I'll just live with that. No. It's like the difference between, kissing a girl and
kissing your sister.
Yeah, it's you got to see it. It's really, truly amazing. And God created these. You hear Hugh Ross talk about it. The total solar eclipses allow us to date ancient events to within a day, because we can wind the clock backwards. The Chinese were really good at giving us a record of a lot of those eclipses, and we know exactly to the day when they happened. It's pretty cool.
a lot of major scientific discoveries have come out because of these. Einstein's theory of relativity was confirmed during a total eclipse, and also we discovered the element helium.
Oh yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
And we also, I think we discovered exactly what our lights, the radiation band, the light spectrum that basically keeps us alive.
Mm-hmm.
We discovered that through the total eclipse. So we discovered quite a bit of things, and principles in physics and astronomy and so on due to this. It's our privileged position in this solar system that allows us to do these kinds of scientific experiments.
Good. It's really remarkable. I just can't tell everybody enough about. Go see it. It's a thing of a lifetime. You'll remember it on your deathbed. It's really pretty cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then speaking of God's existence, I mean, just the design features around a total eclipse of the sun is itself evidence for fine tuning and therefore proof for God's existence.
Yeah, it's just one more of dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces that I'm finally getting around to reading Fuz Rana's book.
Mhm.
The latest one, I can't remember what it's called. It's he's talking about a biological anthropic principle, and I'm not a biologist, but it's pretty cool. He talks about how the individual elements in the periodic chart, especially the 22 or 25 that are necessary for life, are fine-tuned and have all these wacky characteristics that allow for life. It's like God just had this amazing good time at his stove, cooking all this stuff up so that we could be in existence 14 billion years later. It's a good read if you like learning 500,000 new biological terms.
Right now, I'm doing a lot of writing on just fine-tuning my own version of the Thomistic argument, and it's amazing on the one hand how quickly and simply you can give the argument, and on the other hand how subtle the critics will attack it and how you can match them point by point in defending each premise.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot of evidence out there for God's existence. It's really too much to catalog in a lifetime in one sense. So
I've been thinking a lot about that. I know we got something else to talk about, but we wind up on these rabbit trails that are I think are pretty fun.
I think our audience needs to know, probably every now and then, we don't plan these.
Yeah.
Basically, we just turn on the camera and allow whoever cares about listening, two friends just talking. I mean, we plan them only in the broadest sense. Hey, let's talk about rationality rules and the problem of evil. We plan on doing part 2 back in June, I think.
Yeah.
We still haven't finished it. So I have that queued up, but if we don't get to it, that's fine with me.
No, we probably will. But I just want to say Travis and I are deeply grateful to you guys that listen. We'd love your comments. And I want to say one thing, Travis, about what we talked about last week. I'm really excited because I've been talking to some pastors I know. I have a pastor friend who's part of the Seventh-day Adventist church community, and my pastor who's an Anglican. And if anybody out there knows an Orthodox priest who could articulately defend the faith, or a Catholic, or the one that I really I'm looking forward to is a Messianic Jew.
I've been contacting some of my contacts too. So we have no guarantees, I don't think. We do have people that are interested, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So our series on multiple Christian traditions will begin in a few weeks, and we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. So anybody out there,
we do plan in the broad sense, like we bring people on, but besides picking a broad topic, it really is a from the hip sort of thing. It's a very authentic process, I think.
Yeah. So anybody out there, if you know somebody, you have questions you want to ask, please let us know. Travis, we need to put up. I know we have a email address that we can have people talk to us at, and we haven't put that up for like months. I don't know what's wrong with us, but if you can find that, maybe you could, actually get it on the screen.
I'll have our people who produce this thing. We'll get them on it and make sure that's all.
Yeah. What's wrong with them?
Yeah. I'll just start goals.
That's right. So, rationality rules. I don't think so. Yeah. You want to do this?
Sure. I will say this. It is interesting that he calls himself rationality rules, and I'd like to say this. I don't think I was able to say this last time because I was anticipating that you and I are organized people that do things by the book, and that was a really bad assumption.
Hate to disappoint.
Yeah, but I guess it'd be good for me to say, for those of you that are interested in him in action, in the sense that he seeing him in a debate. Cameron Battusi over at Capturing Christianity debated him on the Clum argument a few years ago. The Clum argument was one of the first things we talked about on our show.
Yeah.
Whatever begins to exist has a cause, and the universe began to exist, so it has a cause. And it's interesting that at one point in the discussion, rationality rules drew into doubt whether the laws of logic apply to reality. Does every square inch of our universe, does it succumb, or does it have to submit to the laws of logic, or can there be something in existence that is illogical? And while he didn't fully clutch in and say yes, he's at least open to the possibility.
So let's assume for a minute that was true. How would you interrogate that question if the laws of logic don't hold?
That's precisely it. So does rationality rules after all? It seems to me that irrationality has to at least be a bunk bed of rationality. Because if there's some inch of our world that does not succumb to the laws of logic, the rationality does not rule.
You may as well just give up science, give up philosophy.
Absolutely.
2 + 2 = 5. There's no point in continuing any of this if that were true.
Maybe the laws of physics and the laws of logic, for that matter, here don't apply to some distant galaxy that we haven't detected yet.
Yeah, well, maybe the Easter Bunny's real, Travis.
Sure, maybe things are popping into existence out of nothing all over the universe, and we just can't see that yet.
Yeah. So
it's just so once you enter into that sort of absurdity, it's really difficult to carry on a conversation with them, because talking to an individual like that is kind of like talking to a fideist Christian who thinks that God can be illogical. If God can be illogical, then God cannot be known. Well, if the universe is illogical, then the universe can't be known.
Right. It means you can't trust a single thing.
That's right.
Not a single fact is you can't make any inferences from it. You can't do anything with it. We may as well just give up.
Absolutely. And so again, I just stress, he does shoot himself in the foot at times. I mean, he's an extremely bright, brilliant person, and I'm sure he's a great guy. I'd love to have a beer with him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, his views are just irrational, which is ironic given his moniker. And I'll just say one more thing before we cue up the clip, because we're going to replay the part where he basically defines faith as the ability to believe, without evidence. But if you think that it's at least possible, for all you know, that there's a part of the universe that is illogical, that breaks the laws of logic, well, then that means there are things that you're at least prepared to believe in that don't have any evidence for them. How could they if they break the laws of logic? And you've also allowed theists to say the same thing about God. So if you were to prove to the Christian satisfaction that the Trinity is illogical, you, by questioning the laws of logic in this universe, you've allowed the Christian to say, well, I guess the Trinity is illogical, and it's true even after you've proven to me that it's illogical. In other words, so much worse for the laws of logic. You've broken all form of communication with people from other worldviews.
Yeah, and isn't saying that there are parts of the universe, or all the universe, that is illogical? Isn't that fundamentally still a truth statement that's founded in logic?
Oh, the self-defeating character of the
right.
It's just ridiculous.
So I think, Travis, here, I think you and I have talked about this before, but I think many people, not everybody, but many people who are committed to atheism or committed to naturalism will give up, I predict, will give up rationality and logic and science before they will allow for the existence of a creator. And I think we're starting to see the edges of that. We're starting to see that with this kind of thing.
I not only agree with you, and on both counts, I agree with you that they're willing to, and we're starting to see that. The thing that I would say beyond that is, I think that as paradoxical and as even contradictory as it sounds, illogic is their logical conclusion. So, as Garrett Lagrange said in his work on God's existence, you either embrace God or absolute absurdity. And the attempt of the atheists, the naturalists, to understand our universe apart from God is a fool's errand. So
God, it's like he's got this vice, right? And he's cranking the handle really slowly. And
yeah,
it seems like the evidence for God, and we believe the Christian God, just gets stronger and stronger every year. And those who don't want to believe have plenty of reason to not believe. I think God in his grace has actually allowed for a universe in which we can reject him and still sleep at night. But I think that choice is getting harder and harder and harder as time goes on. And so we need to expect irrationality, anger, maybe violence, because they don't have a choice. They can't go anywhere else because rationally it's getting less and less tenable to not believe in a creator. What do you think of that?
I think that that's absolutely true. I think that as we move further and further into into history, and I think that there are periods where I tend to think that we might be living in the last days. I'm just one of those. Obviously, I don't know. I mean, we're either on the cusp of a major revival or we're on the cusp of entering into the final hour. But regardless, I think that as we move through history, God will allow the evidence for his existence to become more and more clear as hearts become more and more hard.
Yeah.
So I think that's a trend.
You and I someday are going to do that series that we've been talking about on love, and I think we as faithful followers of Christ have to be really careful that we can't hunker down and in our bunker and wait out the final days. God has given us a really clear mandate to love, to be patient, to forgive, and it's going to be harder and harder, but that's what he's given us to do. And it's so easy to get lost in eschatology or politics, or you can get lost in theology, you can get lost in apologetics. There's so many little ways where you can be like one step away from the heart of Christ, and yet you're not there. And the heart of Christ has to do with love. And it's hard, man. It's the hardest road that we can tow. But if we're a follower of him, that's what's expected of us. So, we can't just be bagging on people without praying for them, forgiving them, engaging them, loving them. Man, it's hard.
I guess I'll add to that too. I think that the more Christians inform themselves on these issues, the more calm they will be in the storm.
Oh man, yes. Yeah.
I honestly don't get upset when people laugh at what I believe. I mean, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I know I'm a moron. So, I start with that. So why should I'm not going to get upset if people just affirm the truth. And then beyond that, I just know that God exists. And I don't need your affirmation to to supply me with mine.
That's right.
I already have the evidence, already have the goods, and I'm perfectly willing to patiently hear you out and tell me why my evidence is bad. But as far as from where I'm standing, my evidence is unassailable, and it's not my evidence; it's the evidence that better philosophers than me have articulated, and quite frankly, the church has upheld as good evidence since the early 2nd century, if not before. So we're, some of the evidences we have go way back, and then some of it is new. Our friend Hugh Ross, who we've not had on yet, we need to get him on.
I don't know why. I was thinking about that today. Like, what's the deal? Here's this world famous guy, and and he wants to be on, and we haven't even had him on. It's like,
well, I will speak for myself. I'm a moron, as I just said, and so that's part of the explanation. But Hugh has his blog, and I would encourage people to go to the Reasons to Believe, reasons.org, their website. And Hugh's got a great blog entry called Today's New Reason to Believe.
Yeah.
And his prediction is that every month, minimally, we're going to discover new evidence for God's existence each month.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful for me to sit here. I'm contemplating the Thomistic argument these days, but I love the fact that that's not the only evidence I have. There's just this mountain of evidence that just keeps arriving. So with this old apologetic that I cling to, or that I actually believe is sound, I get to add to it a new reason to believe daily or weekly or monthly. So it's an exciting time to be alive. There's more evidence coming in for God's existence than anything that Thomas Aquinas or a Calvin or even a B.B. Warfield had access to.
This is like the golden age of apologetics. There's never been a time in history when we've had more access to amazing information, historical, scientific, philosophic, theological. It's like a playground. It's so much fun to jump into this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I want to say one thing though, Travis. I think again we have to be. You and I, right? Okay, we're weird. We're unusual.
You're weirder than me.
That's true because I'm left-handed, so I'm doubly weird.
Yeah.
So we're weird in that we need the rational arguments. I know I needed the rational arguments for God's existence before I could give my heart to Him.
Right.
Most people, it's the other way around, and so you and I talk about.
I will say this, Ross, and I can say this honestly. When I got saved, I didn't know any of this. I didn't have any what I would call rational arguments. Now, I did have an upbringing that was Christian, and that influenced me. So when my sister gave me the gospel, I thought about it, and I even consciously I said, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
When I finally, so I was a nominal Christian. So I grew up in a Christian home, but I had not given my life to Christ. And when my sister gives me the gospel, I'm like, I don't know about that. But I didn't need a rational argument that proved to me that God existed. I mean, I would have been dumbfounded if I met people. And in my later years in high school, I was dumbfounded when I met people that didn't think that God existed. I didn't need really a whole lot of arguments showing that the Bible is true. So, but that's pre-evangelism. I mean, God's pre-evangelism for me was to raise me in a Christian home, and it was just part of the world I lived in the air I breathed.
Yeah, and me too. I was saved when I was 7, but my faith really kicked in when I met Hugh Ross and Reasons to Believe, and I was like, wow, here's this guy that's trying to answer a lot of these questions that I've always had that nobody's been able to touch. And so I didn't become a Christian through that, but maybe I could say I became a real follower of Christ.
I guess I misunderstood you. So yeah, I agree with you.
That's because I didn't say it very well.
Well, I agree with you. I think that, like, as in my own testimony, I did come to Christ but then it wasn't until I sat in classrooms starting my junior year in high school and then into college where they were debunking the Bible. And it does become difficult to just maintain your faith if you're constantly hearing that.
Yeah.
So I don't think apologetics is necessary for faith, and it's not necessary for the life of the church, but it's necessary for the health of the church if you're in a context that is anti-Christian.
Right.
There were plenty of Christians that survived the Soviet Union, but they barely survived, humanly speaking. They came out very scathed because they had no resources to combat what they were getting, from their professors in the academic halls of Russia. They had a few encyclopedias, and they had their Bibles, and they had the prayers of their grandmothers. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
It's an embarrassment of riches, what we have. We just have so much. I can call you, I can call Hugh Ross, I can call plenty of friends who are experts in these fields and talk to them about all kinds of issues. So and I'm not alone in this. People watching this, they can get in contact with these people, go to conferences, build up their apologetic arsenal in their mind so that they can be ready to give the defense for the hope that is in them.
Yeah, and I just want to say to people, don't cruise in your faith. It's kind of what Travis is saying here. Get involved. Find something. If you've been a follower of the Lord for a while, you probably have a sense of where he wants you to go. Find something that reflects him that you can be doing for your faith. And, another thing, I'm 67, Travis, and I'm ashamed to admit that it's only been 2 or 3 years since I've been reading my Bible on a regular basis. I get up every morning now and pray and read the Bible, and it changes me. And, there's going to be a time come maybe when stuff is going to happen. And if you don't know the Bible, you're not going to know that this is what's supposed to be happening or understand the context for it.
Right.
And so, as a Reformed non-Bible reader, I'm proselytizing everybody here. I really encourage you to just start at Genesis and go through it.
We've run out of time.
Oh, surprise!
But we have like 2 minutes. So instead of queuing up rationality rules, we'll just do it next week or next year, whenever we get to it. But it's interesting that lately I've had Christians come to me and ask me for what book would you start with? What would be the order with which you read the Bible? And you're a little different because you've been studying for a while, at least under Hugh, even if you've not read it daily. But if you are a new Christian and you're wondering about, what book do I start with? I think the book of Mark. And then you skip over to Galatians. And read some of the shorter Pauline epistles. And then read the epistles of John. And then go back and read the entire New Testament straight through.
Yeah, that's good.
I would read the New Testament after you do those initial books, just getting the basics down. Because Galatians, for example, is the Christian's charter. It tells us how we're made right with God. It doesn't give a full apologetic for it, other than to simply say, this is the gospel. But if you do that, you at least get the very basics. How do you live your life, confession of sins, how you're made right with God, and so forth. Then what I would do is read Matthew to Revelation, read the New Testament 6 times. Actually read it 5 times all the way through. And then go back and read the Old Testament 3 times all the way through. And then the 4th time you read it all the way through, read from Genesis to Revelation.
And Travis, one of the I think that when I do when my next go around, because I'm just going to keep doing it. If you go online and you can type in chronological order of the Bible,
Yeah.
Bible books, and there's a lot of people who have done this, where you can read the Bible in the chronological order that we think that it was written in, and that would be a good angle too, because then you're not going back and forth in history.
Right. I think there are a gazillion ways to do it.
Yeah.
Old Testament does take a little bit more background knowledge, but you're not really going to understand the New Testament until you read the Old Testament several times. So reading the New Testament is easier in one sense without before you get to the Old Testament, but you're really going to start seeing things come together when you read the Old Testament 3 or 4 times and you're going, oh, that's what Paul was talking about. Right. That's what, and then you can read it all the way through, and then you just see the big picture as well as the details.
And I'll say one more thing before we go. I'm a big Mike Heiser fan. He passed away earlier this year, but he had a podcast called the Naked Bible Podcast. And if you want to understand what the Bible says in the context that it was written in, and how we should understand it, I don't think there's a better guy. That podcast, it's not on YouTube because it was audio only. But if you just go to Naked Bible Podcast, he had over 400 episodes. And I binged it for about 3 months, and it's really, really, it just brings it to life. It really lit it up for me. Like, wow, this is all the symbolism and what all this stuff meant, and why the place names were important, and it added color. Really did. Yeah.
He's a great teacher. We're going to miss him in the years to come.
Yeah, it's really
miss you, man.
Yeah, Travis, thank you. I hope it's not as hot out there. It's like
scorching.
Yeah.
Scorching.
Yeah. Oh well.
But hey, man, you take care. You have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week, and I'll see you all next week.
All right.